Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of our podcast, Is Breakfast Included? How you guys doing? Great. Today I sit down with my good buddy Nate Dawson. Nate is the stage manager out here on Duran Duran, but he's also a guitar tech, backline tech, production manager, as well as stage manager. He does it all. He works for a lot of cool bands. He's always on the road, and he's quite possibly one of the nicest guys you're ever going to meet in this business, and I mean that. I say that a lot. Sometimes I mean it. Sometimes I don't. Most of the time I mean it. But I really mean it with Nate. Now he's not going to believe me. Anyway, we had a great conversation. Talked about what he does, how he got into the business, and he told a few stories. Let's check it out. Anyway, I'd like to hear about your human cannonball story. You got some huge shoes to fill, Nate.
I told you when you first asked me. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not really that guy. I mean, I know people that have those stories. Then we got naked and ran through the halls, banging on people's doors. I'm not.
I think the story I told you about the Bowery, the guy. Hey man, can you give me a Coke?
Yeah.
That's my big drug story. It had nothing to do with drugs. Anyway, okay, man. Tell everyone who you are.
Oh, we're started already. Okay. You're going to edit out the first part, right?
I'll edit out the first part, yeah.
Nate Dawson, stage manager on this Duran Duran tour with Bernie. I do backline, tour management. Yeah, whatever.
Where are you from originally?
Grew up in Denver, Colorado.
Yeah?
Yeah. I left there when I was 20 with the intention of going to Los Angeles, but I got sidetracked by a friend who had a band in St. Louis. So I moved there to play for, ostensibly to play for his band. I got to St. Louis. It was the band was terrible, so I got a job in a music store and saved up enough money to move away. But then I went to Florida for some reason, which was fun. Place to spend my early 20s, Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
And then I went back to Colorado and got out to Los Angeles in the mid-'90s.
So you made your way the long way.
The long way around, yeah.
It's kind of like this tour, right?
Yeah. My agent was terrible at routing my life.
We have the same agent. So when you got out to LA, did you play in bands? Had you given that up already, or just not giving it up, but just kind of?
At that point, I already knew that I wanted to be in production, and I was also involved in the business early in Los Angeles. Worked for some management companies, and actually worked for an agency for a while, a small agency out there. I knew I wanted to do production. I was still playing a little bit, but gigging, working for other people eats up your time. Yeah. So I realized I wasn't going to be able to commit to both. Yeah. And I like production more than you meet guys that do what we do. It's like their consolation prize. Like they wanted to be a rock star, but that didn't work. So they're stuck being a roadie.
There's a lot of techs that make it work, and they're in bands, but it only works when all their band members are off the road, or.
Yeah, no, it's tough. I know people that do it too, but I enjoy the production. I didn't. This isn't a career I settled for. This is a career I chose.
Yeah.
So I still play for fun, jam with friends, but being a rock star went out the window a long time ago.
Yeah. What was your first tour?
First tour was with a band called Winds of Change in 1990. Yeah, we had a 5-ton and a rented Winnebago, and CB radios and an Atlas. I'm old. We went to Wisconsin to Minnesota from Colorado.
Yeah,
and back.
And what did you do on that?
A guitar tech on that one. Yeah. I was also helping manage the band. It was a small organization.
I drove. I managed the band. Guitar tech. I sold merch. My first gig I was guitar tech, and then halfway through they go, "We need a merch guy." So I'd sell merch before the show, break down, and then sell merch after the show. It's a great gig.
Yeah. So when you're getting started, you said you were going to talk about, whatever, maybe some advice or whatever. And anybody who wants to get in this business, learn to wear all the hats.
Yeah.
Because you're going to,
Yeah.
whether you like it or not.
Yeah. A lot of people have these, I don't want to say delusions of grandeur, but they think, I'm going to be a guitar tech for John Mayer. No, you're going to be a guitar tech for, Joe Schmo. And maybe work your way up to John Mayer,
Right.
If it's in a lot of ways it's kind of the same as the music business. Like, you may be that band that's up here, but you're gonna have to start down here and work your way up.
Yeah.
And it all comes with hard work and learning all the ropes, I think.
No, absolutely. Anybody early on, one of my first mentors told me, said a lot of people get into the music industry because they think it's going to be a constant party. But one of the first things you realize if you get serious about it is that the first thing that's got to go is the constant party.
Yeah, right. What was your first major band that you worked for that you had hits on the radio or were known?
Jeez, I don't know. I've been doing this for a minute. I lose track of people. I spent a lot of time with guitar players early on because that was I did want to be a rock star at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So I was fascinated with guitar players. So early on, working with some people like Tony McAlpine and Vinnie Moore and names that a lot of people probably wouldn't necessarily know. They're not household names to people outside the guitar world.
Yeah. The shrapnel guys.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
But for me, that was it.
Yeah.
So that would be my first exciting gigs, I think. Yeah, big hit bands. I've worked for UFO. I worked with Dweezil Zappa's band off and on. Who else? Remember some of the guys we did the Dio tour last year, the Dio hologram tour, which was a lot of fun because all the Dio freaks are out there, and I was one.
Yeah.
my room when I was a kid was all Eddie and Murray. I don't know if people know that the mascot for Dio his name is Murray.
I didn't know that.
So Eddie and Murray were my two good friends in high school.
Someone told me that Eddie, I heard a story that Eddie was Steve Harris of Iron Maiden, like his childhood nightmare, and so he made it the mascot of his band Iron Maiden. I don't know how true that is, but it's an interesting story,
Yeah,
but
could be.
I'd
read that originally it was a mask, just that they got at a horror shop, and they would carry it around on like a styrofoam head, and put it on the drum riser, and that's his original name was Eddie the Head.
See, I didn't know that either.
Eddie, as I say in British, Eddie the Ed.
Eddie the Ed. I mean, every gig is different. Every gig we do is different. What's the one constant you see in every gig you do? Like, what's the one thing is? We were talking about this earlier. Like, everyone has their idea of a stage manager. It's the same title, but it's a different gig on every. But there's always one constant of the stage manager. What's the one constant of a guitar tech that you've experienced in every?
Well, I mean,
other than tuning.
Yeah, I mean, there's the obvious. Building your world, tuning the guitars, making sure that your artists are happy. I don't know. That's a weird question.
Yeah. It's not an easy answer. I just thought of that question just now when you said something, and it kind of, encouraged me to ask that, because I can't tell you. The one constant is, to me, God, that is a hard question. I can't even answer my own, but I'm not here to answer my questions, Nate. You're here to answer my questions.
I think the one constant of the entertainment industry in general is that there is no constant. As I'm thinking about, if I'm going to get really philosophical about it, and we talked about this too, is I think one thing that anybody who has a longer term career in this and gets good at it, we find ways to create consistency.
Yeah.
You know, you get into whatever the venue is, and you find your world, and you find your space, and you figure out where you're going to be and where your artist is going to be, and we try to create something every day that gives us a regiment.
A routine.
Yeah. So we know what we're doing, where things are, and how to make it work. Because every day is funny. I don't know if you think this way, but every venue, and I don't want to ruin the magic of Hollywood here, but from our perspective, every venue kind of looks the same.
Yeah.
Looking out at the crowd, it doesn't matter if you're in a 1,000-seater or a 15,000-seater or a 50,000-seater. It's just more faces.
Yeah.
But what we do is the same thing every night.
Yeah.
So we got to figure out how to make that work in a different environment every night.
Yeah. The rest outside of what I do, my life is just chaotic. Like, I can't find shit at home. I'm always looking for something, but that's the only place in my life where it's the chaos all comes together. Like, I know where everything is. I know where everything goes. Like we talked earlier, like I have this bass goes here, this bass goes here. And I've even had people come over and bring me a bass and put it. I'm like, no, it doesn't go there. It goes right here.
Exactly.
Put it right here. And it's that, I don't know if it's OCD or I'm neurotic or what it is, but that's the only place in my life that I'm not scatterbrained, because I know where everything, that's kind of like my world. And I refer to the bases. Those are my bases.
Yeah.
And I know how they feel. I know, but anywhere else in my life, I'm like, I've talked about this before. When I get home, people ask me to work on guitars, and I'm like, nah, I don't do that when I'm on the road, because I don't know their guitars. I don't know how they like. I know how I like it. I know how, but I can't. I've never been able to be that guy that says, yeah, I'll work on your stuff. I'm so terrified. But the basses on the road are my basses. I'm not terrified of scratching those or trying things on them, experimenting. And I don't know if you're like that, but that's me. That's my lack of confidence, so outside of my 8x8 space.
I think two things you bring up there that are interesting. I do the same thing with guitars in the boat. I think that's born of necessity, because there's how many times when something goes down on the stage, it's got to be fixed now. Mm-hmm. You can't stop the cameras and take two. And there's a lot of times you got to be looking at what's going on, and you got to be able to reach over to your boat and just know that you're grabbing the right instrument without looking at it.
Yeah.
So I think being on the road, there's a necessity to the routine. I'm kind of the same way at home. I'm not a planner. I'm not that organized. Friends call me up and go, "Hey, what are you doing Wednesday?" No idea.
Yeah. I don't even know what I'm doing today.
Exactly, right. On the road, I do. On the road, I know where we're going and what's going. To that extent, I usually know where we're going.
Yeah,
that's about
we don't know what day it is, but
I don't know what day it is. Right? There's 2 days in our world. I always say there's show days and there's not show days.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I don't know. What was the other part of the thing you just said? Being at home. Yeah, it's interesting. I think the same thing. Sometimes it's particularly my own instruments, actually, that I'll get scared of working on if something gets tricky. I think because I'm too close to them. I'm sure that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
When you're working for a band, it's easier, I think, to look at their instruments as tools of the trade. And it's not that we don't have utmost respect. We have the most respect for their instruments, because those instruments make the show happen.
Yeah.
I do work at home on people's guitars, and I'm not scared of that. But I understand what you're saying, in that sometimes my own guitars, I'll take to a friend. So you do it, you break it, not me.
Yeah. I ask this question a lot to people on the road. I've been doing these interviews with fellow crew members, but and this answer is different from a lot of people. What's the biggest misconception your circle of friends have about what you do? Like of the roadie world, of the production world, what's the biggest misconception that they have of what you do?
You know, probably the same thing we all see, and I think we got to separate our. When you say circle of friends, you're talking about our circle of friends that aren't in the business.
Yeah. Because we have circle.
Right.
Most of my friends are.
Most of my friends are in the business, right? The people that aren't, I'm sure we all get the same thing. You know, you go on a tour and somebody goes, "Oh, have a great time, have a fun trip. You know, take lots of pictures, see lots of cool stuff," and they don't understand. A lot of people ask me sometimes what it's like to go on tour, and one of the things I tell people is imagine going to your office and staying there for 6 weeks. Because that's what we do.
Yeah.
And
sometimes we never see the outside of that venue.
Yeah. You know, we see buses, we see venues, we see hotel rooms, we see airports. It's great when we have a day off or a couple of hours, maybe around at dinner time or something, where we can run out and try and see something, especially if we're somewhere cool, you know, some European city or you know, New York or someplace where you want to get out and do something. But yeah, I think a lot of people think that we just go out and party all the time, and they don't understand. You probably get the same thing. You get into a city and you get a call from a friend. "Hey, let's get together for lunch." "I can't. I'm at the venue." "Well, what are you doing there?" "Well, do you think all this stuff just magically shows up at 8 o'clock just before you come into the venue?" You know, no, we're there at 6 a.m. building this for you.
Yeah. And as backline guys, I mean, you're a backline guy sometimes. The people within the production world say we only work 2 hours a night. Oh, you guys only work 2 hours a night. But yeah, we do work. We do at least 4. Yeah. Right? The setup, the show, the breakdown.
Yeah, people don't see all the work that goes into backline, because it's easy, you know, you see these videos people do, you know, these time lapse, you know, of all the lights going up and the sound systems and all the big stuff. And they don't see us huddled in a corner somewhere, changing strings, straightening out necks, you know,
fighting for real estate.
Right, fighting for real estate.
You know.
Yeah. Fixing pickups, broken amps.
Yeah.
You know, we're kind of, we wear black and we hide in the dark.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
even during the day.
You know, that's my biggest fear is when, like, I'm the worst at soldering.
Yeah.
You know, so if I have to replace a pot or a volume pot or an input jack, like, I dread that. I just hang my head and go, ugh. I had to pull the soldering iron, and you know, it hasn't gotten good. I've been doing this shit since 2007, and that's the one thing I can't conquer is soldering. You know, it's my arch nemesis. I can fix a broken headstock. I'll have that shit for you the next day. You know, but yeah. So I don't know what your Achilles heel is on the road. That's mine. When I hear something electrical going wrong, I think, fuck, I'm just going to buy a new one. You know, I'm just going to buy a new one. I'm not going to spin, because it takes me time and I get angry and impatient to where I just want to quit. But it's the only time I get like that out here. Yeah. But so have you ever worked for any of your heroes? You mentioned Tony McAlpine, Vinnie Moore. Those guys were guys. Me coming up, Tony McAlpine that's what made me start respecting a band called Stained, because Mike Mushak was one of Tony McAlpine's students.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't realize he was an accomplished guitar player, because Stained only played in drop D. Right. But Tony McAlpine, Vinnie Moore, Jason Becker, all those guys were like my heroes. I could never play like them, but like I said, all the Shrapnel guys were. My best friend at the time was signed to Shrapnel, and he was the best guitar player in my mind.
Right.
But yeah, so all those guys. But as far as like your guys, who was have you ever got to work for any of your like heroes growing up?
Yeah, that's kind of following up what you asked me before. It's funny when people say, who are the big hit bands you've worked for, and it's I've had an odd career in that I intentionally went out of my way to work for a bunch of people that no one else has ever heard of, because unfortunately that's instrumental rock is a very niche kind of market in the music industry, but it was what I loved. You know, Steve Vai's Passion and Warfare was a game changer for me. Tony and Vinny's first record, a lot of this, all the Shrapnel guys, not Mr. Big, he went on to Mr. Big, Racer X, Paul Gilbert. Yeah, I have actually a funny story, interesting philosophical story. At one point, there was a guy named Cliff Coltrari who was the head of A&R for Relativity Records, who was another one of the guys like Mike Varney, who helped a lot of these guys along in their careers, and he got ill in, I don't know, this was 15 years ago or something maybe. So we did a couple of benefit concerts for him, and I don't even remember who all was involved at this point, but I found myself at one point standing on the stage watching Joe Satriani and Steve Vai trading licks. To my right was Tony McAlpine, Mike Keneally, Brendan Small, Orianthi. On my left side was Dweezil Zappa. There's a few other guys. I don't remember who. Everybody, every guitar player was there. Yeah, basically. And I had worked with a lot of these guys, and it had always been exciting to work for these guys since they were my heroes growing up. But this was an interesting one for me because it was such an exciting night. And the next morning I woke up and I was actually depressed because I realized it's never going to get any better than that. And I literally had to come up with a different reason for why I do what I do. Not that I've never been a fanboy. It's never been about meeting the artist. But it is cool to work for people you respect. Yeah. But after working with on one show, almost every major guitar name you can think of, I had to take a step back and go, all right, what's the big goal now? Yeah. And it was interesting. I'll get philosophical for just a minute because it did make me realize something that I'm glad. You know what we do? Nobody goes to a concert mad. Everybody, music is one of the few things in this crazy ass world we're living in now that can still bring people together. Yeah. You go to a concert and there's whatever, 200 people, 1,000 people, 5,000, 10,000, 50,000 people. They're all there, and for those couple of hours, we're all on the same page. Yeah. Maybe a fight breaks out with some drunk guys, but for the most part, everybody's there to have a good time. Yeah. So it sounds corny to say this, but our job is we get to help bring happiness to people.
Dude, that's not corny at all. Like I take a look around when we do a gig is because I don't like the attitude of being annoyed at a gig. I don't like the attitude of treating fans like second class citizens. I mean, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be there. Yeah. But the other night, we're out with Duran Duran right now. We're the other night at Madison Square Garden, and you see people up in the cheap seats, and you can see them clearly dancing, and I'm like, those are the fans. Like, we did this for them. Like, it sounds. You can say it sounds corny, and people, too cool for school people will say it's corny. But you're right, man. We help bring those 2 hours of happiness. Because even for 2 hours, like, even we're mouthing the words to these songs that the band's playing on stage. I've said it. If I've said this once, I've said it 1,000 times. I still catch myself looking on stage going, God damn, that's Duran Duran. Right. I'm about to hand this dude a bass, and I think, it's not corny, man. What we do, I think we're chosen. There's a chosen few. Not everybody can do this. It's not for everyone. It's not for the faint of heart, and it's not always fun. But when that show goes up and those lights go down, and that downbeat hit happens, it makes it all worth it.
I'm sure you've had other people on your podcast share the old saying in the music industry that those 2 hours on the deck every night, that's free. Yeah. We do that for free. Yeah. It's the other 22 hours of bullshit that we have to deal with to get that to happen. That's what we get paid for.
Yeah. Is there a certain gig you've done? You just told me, I guess that you just answered this next question that you look back on and you're like, that's what I'll remember always, you know?
I mean, that certainly is a memorable one. I've been very blessed. I've gotten to work with, like I say, Steve Vai was a game changer for me, and my friend Thomas Nordegg has been Steve Vai's right-hand man since the Zappa days.
Yeah.
And through Thomas, I've ended up doing a lot of work with Vai over the years, which has been. I'm not a fanboy. I never have been.
Yeah.
That said, there's a small handful of people that I can say I'm really excited to have met or worked with. Steve is one for sure. Again, all the guys have said touring with Vinnie Moore, and then Vinnie Moore brought me in onto the UFO tour. And UFO that's rock royalty.
Yeah.
I was a huge Dio fan growing up. Unfortunately, I never got to work with Ronnie, but I've worked with everybody else in his band that has carried on and played in Dio Disciples, who does the tribute shows to Ronnie.
That's with Greg Goldie and
Goldie and Scott Warren on keyboards. I'm blocking out people's names here because I'm on the spot. But
that's fine. No, I do it all the time. As opposed to you, I am a fanboy. I was that kid on the front row asking for a guitar pick. Hell, I asked you for a guitar pick. I was that kid growing up.
We do that, and I'm gonna be hitting you up for Duran Duran picks before this is over. That's the mementos.
Of course, anything you want. I'm still that guy, and I think I told you the story. I worked for an artist. I can't say their name because I signed a non-disclosure. But when I met the gentleman I was working for, he was telling me these are the changes, and he's playing this classic riff that I've heard all my life, and I couldn't help but sit there and just smile from ear to ear while he's talking to me, and he's like, "You all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm perfect." And those are the times that I think it made it all worth it. Like I said, I got into this business late, but once I got here, I tried to soak up every bit of knowledge and unfortunately I'm not a production manager. I'm not a tour manager. I can stage manage, and I do bass and guitar teching. I don't know drums for shit. I had a day off or a week off when we were in London, and I got offered a gig for, what's the cat's name? Took over for the other guy, Craig Ferguson. The carpool guy.
Oh, yeah.
James Corden.
Yes.
They were filming in London, and they said, we need a backline tech, because there's such a shortage of backline guys. We need a backline tech. This is how it was good money. And I'm like, I don't know how to do drums. Like, I can go in there and do your keyboards, everything, but I can't set up a drum kit to save my life. And I tell myself every time I get home, like, call one of your drummer friends, have them just set their kit up and keep doing it. But it's that, dude, that's that lack of confidence. Like, I think, I'm going to do it really great here when I'm put on the spot for, Joey one time or whatever. Right. I'm going to screw up his kit. But no, I do. There's certain artists that I've crossed paths with or have worked for that I don't fanboy, but in my heart, I'm like, I can't believe I'm here. There's a guy, Jason Isbell, I worked for him for a year, and every night I to this day, I told myself I witnessed the best goddamn rock band I've ever seen, and to me, I would have done it for free just to watch his band every night. I didn't do it for free, but I would have. I would have.
You have to. We probably both have met people that get jaded at a certain point.
Yeah.
That start to, in some way, hate music or hate their job. And I don't understand why those people stay in the industry. Because our job, there's a misunderstanding. You asked earlier about misunderstanding. Our jobs are really hard. It's taxing. We're away from home for a long time. Relationships suffer. We don't get to hang out with our friends. We give up. We sacrifice a lot. But I think there's got to be that underlying love of something, and it sounds. I mean, for you and I think it's the music. That's the payoff. It's like you say if I could go back and tell 16-year-old me what I do now and who I know, it would blow my mind.
Exactly, man. Exactly. If I told 6-year-old me, you're going to have a phone in your pocket all the time, and you're going to have these people's phone numbers.
Is that crazy? Some of the phone numbers we probably both people that we can both call.
Oh man, it's crazy, isn't it? Like,
just why we have code names. For the record, if you find our phones, you're not gonna.
Yeah. It's not gonna say John Taylor in my phone at all.
So don't try to steal our phones.
Yeah. What you just said, all the people that I cross paths with, you and I were at a record store earlier, but the people I cross paths with that I really connect with, and like I tell people, that everyone on this tour is like, man, your buddy Nate. And I was like, I met Nate on Facebook. This is the first time I was rolling the dice when I referred him, But one thing I notice about the people I connect with on a personal level, on tour or in life, or what I say is the people who read the liner notes in the cassette tapes or the CDs, like you wanted to know who produced it. You wanted to know, it was everything you could find out about the music that you were listening to. Everyone has that story that I feel are the people I connect with. And like just earlier at the record store, you're like, I should have warned you. I'm going to be here and here all day. But it's like it doesn't bother me, man. I love being in record stores. I love looking, flipping through records and finding that one gem that, I was in England a few years ago, and I found Ozzy's Speak of the Devil, but the British version is Talk of the Devil. And I was so happy I found that, and I've had people offer me money for it because of the different title. And it's kind of cool finding that kind of stuff,
Yeah, no, totally. That's one of the fun things in record stores is finding imports and weird stuff, and things, extra songs on a record because it's on this label versus that label. You bring up the reading the liner notes. I remember thinking, reading and wondering, who are these magical people? I just assumed everybody, if your name was on the back of a record, you were some kind of magical Hollywood person. I want to know. This was before the internet,
Yeah.
You try and find out. When I first started getting friends moving to LA, I'm like, who's this person? Who's that person? And what they work for. Starting out, who's in management? Who's the agent? And then your name ends up on a couple people's records.
Yeah.
That's a thrill for me. That's still a thrill for me. Is when someone includes me in their liner notes.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm one of those magical Hollywood people, and nobody knows that some of those people are just friends or whatever.
Right. Hey, man, I tell everyone, you end up on a record, a credit, that's important, man.
Yeah.
I could Google Nate Dawson and it'll give you the credits of wherever you. I think it's important. I'm the same way. I've ended up on a couple of albums and, pro tour programs. It's kind of cool when you see your name in there, like you said, it's like, I'm one of those magic people, like somebody's reading this and going, I wonder what Nate Dawson does.
Yeah. And I consider it an honor. It's, when someone includes me in their liner notes, because it's limited space, and especially, I don't know if liner notes even really exist anymore. I was just about to say, especially on CDs where things are so tiny.
Yeah, you see them in and now that vinyl's making a comeback, you see them in that, and Isabel's last album, I made the liner notes, both in the liner notes and the thank yous, and from the guitar player that I was looking after. And to me, I got all teary-eyed, like, oh my God, like, right. I mean, this guy to me is, people say like, oh, I worked with Dylan or I worked with McCartney, these great songwriters. And I think Jason Isbell's quite possibly the greatest songwriter in my lifetime. And I ended up on his album cover, to me, it's a big deal. that type of shit. People laugh at me because I get real fanboy-y, you know? But hell, that's why we do this. Yeah, I could tell you the day I decided I was going to do that. I didn't know I was going to be a guitar tech. I didn't know I was going to tour, but, you know, there used to be a thing. I was like you. I played guitar. I wanted to be in a band. I couldn't imagine myself going out to L.A., although, like, all my heroes were in L.A., but there, you know, before there was a fucking festival on every corner. You know, there was the California Jam, there was the Texas Jam, and I went to see Van Halen on the 5150 tour. They were headlining that, 1986, and I think this is the first time I'm telling this story to anybody.
Nice.
We're watching, you know, Van Halen play, and I'm in the crowd of however you can you can find this concert on YouTube, but. You know, 5150 wasn't a well-accepted album to the traditionalists. It made them a household name in soccer moms' lives. You know, like it made Van Halen a household name. But when he's playing that last solo in Dreams, I remember listening to it and thinking to myself in my head, fucking 16-year-old me, thinking, I don't have to be on stage, but I'm gonna be part of that show.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be part of it. I don't know how I'm gonna do it. Whether it be, I didn't know what an A&R guy was. I didn't know but I'm going to be part of this world. And lo and behold, man, 20 years later, I got sucked into it. And I'm a late bloomer. I started when I was 36, 37, you know? Yeah. I'm a late bloomer in this business, but I don't regret it. I tell people all the time when I'm on tour, I have this way to disconnect, you know, like, which tells me that I was made for this. I'm a nomad, and I don't mind. When we were in Minnesota the other day and it's pouring down rain, I was in that little shit warm-up room with the, you know, that looked like the puppet show stage, and I was asleep on the floor while this hail is coming down. Like, I just passed out. Like, I don't mind it as long as I'm part of the show. That's all I ever wanted to be, and you know. I don't care what I'm doing or what people ask me to do. I'm just happy to be here. It was hard not doing it for 2 years. It's very hard on me mentally. But we're back, and I'm fucking thankful every day that we're doing this again. Thankful to be out here with people like you and A&R and the rest of the cats out here, you know, people that want to be out here. So anyway, so you've worked for some of your heroes. How long do you see yourself doing this?
I'm going to fall over on stage and die.
Nice. I always say that too. The best thing I could, of course, my family and friends hate when I say this. Like, if I die on the road, like, I died happy. I died doing what I was doing, you know, but I don't want to.
I'm not looking forward to dying, but I just imagine that when it happens, that's where I'll be. Because I think as another thing I've heard about various jobs, and I think this is one for sure that applies to. If you can picture yourself doing something else and being happy, you should probably go and do that because your life will be a lot easier. Yeah. I have the opposite problem. I've had one real job in my life when I was trying to be what my ex-wife called a real guy. Yeah. And I wanted to kill myself. Yeah. You ask me now, is there anything else I would do besides this? What else? What am I going to do? I'm going to go sit in an office now in a cubicle and wear shiny shoes and file TPS reports? Yeah.
Did you get the TPS? I was going to ask you, was there anything else you ever wanted to do other than be a musician or do this? I guess.
No.
You know?
I heard a piece of advice from Eddie Murphy when I was in high school. Somebody asked him if he had a plan B if comedy didn't work out. He said, no, I never had a plan B because everybody I know that has a plan B fell back on it. That's what a plan B is for. Mm-hmm. Because for me, it was comedy or death.
Hey, I did a lot of shit jobs before I did this. I was miserable. I was negative. I was a very dark person. I didn't see the silver lining in anything. The glass was half empty. If you want to get cliche to me, everything was just like. And then I started in this business, man, and I just found so you find your calling, you know. We were talking about reading the liner notes. There was a guy named, you know, when you're growing up, you always think like, I want this guy to produce my first album. This guy's going to do it. There was a guy named Terry Date who did the first Pantera albums. He did a lot of cool stuff, but a guy before him that did the first Dream Theater album was named David Prater. Do you know David?
I don't know. Probably better.
He did the first Firehouse album. He did some cool stuff. And somehow he ended up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and he was working with some friends I knew, and they told me they were working with David Prater. And me was like, no way, it can't be that David. And I started spouting out albums that like that David Prater. And he came in the bar to watch him one night. And I walked up and introduced myself. I fanboyed. I told him I knew all his work. And he was just a normal guy having a drink. And I ran the bar. So we stayed there till after hours just talking. You know, I was feeding him drinks. And he gave me some of the best advice anyone's ever given me. And that was like, he's like, you know, I've burned a lot of people burned me, I've wasted a lot of money. He's like, the one thing if you want to be in this business is you can't harbor any ill will towards anybody because they own that part of your brain and you won't get past it. And to have one of my heroes, young heroes when I was younger, like somebody whose name came out of my mouth a lot, tell me that, it made a difference. And then I found myself several years later doing this for a living and crossing paths with him again. And I told him, I was like, you know, that night you kind of put me I think you put me in a direction that brought me here. Man, before I did this for a living, I was a terrible person. You know, I was a terrible person, but I find myself being happy doing this. I don't complain about buses. Sometimes I say, oh, it's fucking cold in here, but I don't
cold on the bus.
I don't complain about like bumpy drivers or any of that. Like it's always a bumpy driver. It's always a cold bus. It's always going to be something. And you just gotta, you know, we're out here. It's a privilege for us to be doing this. I think so.
It is. No, you know, you were talking about when the lights go down and the curtain comes up or whatever and the show starts. That's certainly a buzz, but there's also a buzz. There's a moment. We don't have much time, but when the band takes their final bow and walks off the stage, we have that moment before we have to start working where the crowd is still going nuts. Pretty much every night I think, wow, look at this. Look what we're doing.
Yeah. See, you need to take over at stage right. I walk out and bask in it. I'm always the first one on stage, and as they're cheering, the band's gone. I walk out and I bask in like they're cheering for me. Take a look tomorrow night.
See, I hide, and I'm embarrassed to say this because we were talking about the fans, and certainly all of us in this industry are grateful for the fans that make it possible for us to do this. But if you're listening and you're not a fan, it's okay to ask for some stuff from the stage. Bernie knows where I'm going. I always hide because some of you people yelling death threats at us because we didn't give you a set list or a pick or something. Yeah. So sometimes I hide a little bit, but I love you all, and if you ask nicely, I'm happy to give you something if we have it available.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we just don't.
Sometimes we just have to get off that stage because you have a union steward screaming at you to get off the stage.
Yeah, we got something going on, or you know. There's been times, you know, we have manufacturing order problems. Maybe we don't have enough drumsticks or picks to give away right now.
Yeah.
That happens. I've worked for bands where they laminate the set list and we just use the same set list at every station through the whole tour, and people are screaming and yelling. So all I'm saying is, if you're listening to this and you're not in the industry, be nice to the techs and maybe you'll get something.
Yeah.
But if you yell at us, that's a good way to not get nothing.
Hey, roadie is not.
Yeah. Hey, you. Hey, asshole.
Yeah.
Give me a set list. That's not doing it.
Well, right on, man. Well, I appreciate you doing this. We have a couple more questions. This is a very short tour. We've gotten through the worst part of it, or the toughest part, not the worst part of it. The toughest part of it. I think it's all downhill from here.
You should give some sort of background to that, and let the people know that are listening that this tour, usually there's problems in a tour, but they're usually spread out over 6 or 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And through a convergence of the perfect storm, this tour, all of the shit that happened in the first week.
Yeah. Happened in the first day.
Yeah, we had 8 weeks worth of problems in the first 7 days.
Yeah. We're only 4 shows in.
Yeah.
We're only 4 shows into this tour, and everything that could possibly happen has happened. So we're prepared for it.
And you were saying?
Anyway, I appreciate your time. What do you got coming on after this? After Duran, man? You got anything cool coming up?
Yeah, the day we finish with Duran at the Hollywood Bowl, I jump on a plane the next day. I fly out for some makeup dates with Rival Sons and Greta Van Fleet. Then after that, right now I got a little free time. Unfortunately, I was offered multiple tours that all start at the beginning of September, and this tour doesn't end until the middle of September, and nobody would let me jump on late. So, one thing I trust though is that something will come. Something always happens. I'm not to stroke my own ego, but if you're reasonably good at what you do and you're nice to people.
That's the number one.
Work always comes.
Right on. Well, man, like I told you, everyone, like I told you earlier, and I don't mean this in a bad way. Everyone that matters on this tour has spoken highly of you, spoken highly of Adar, which is great for me. It makes me look like a genius, you know. But
you are a genius, Bernie.
I have one more question. This podcast is called "Is Breakfast Included?" If it was, what would you have?
Well, I mean, what do we have every day? You hope for some eggs and some toast and some orange juice. That's the dream.
And you hope that it is included.
You hope that it's included, and you hope you're going to get some.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we don't eat.
Yeah.
That's something else people don't. There's one more thing that people don't understand.
Sometimes. The other day I had 5 Sour Patch Kids for breakfast.
Many mornings my breakfast is a couple of mini Twix bars and a Coke. That's breakfast.
Yeah. We had cake for dinner the other night, which was not a good choice on our part, an hour before the show.
Yeah, no, both falling asleep from a sugar crash before the show starts.
Well, man, thank you for doing this. I know I've been pestering you to do this for the whole tour, but I appreciate we made time today. Yeah,
no, this is fun. I'm almost sad that we're rushing off. We got both of us have other plans tonight.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for having me on, and
all right.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
All right. Right on, Nate Dawson. Great guy, huh? You can find him on Facebook and Instagram. You're going to have to find him. I'm not going to give out his personal stuff. I'm not going to give out his personal business, but check it out, man. And if he's in your town with the Rival Sons or with Duran, come to the show, but pay for a ticket. Don't ask us for shit. Okay. All right, guys. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you next week.